So let me introduce Scott Olson, who I indicated earlier is a minister soon-to-be. Scott draws on his diverse experience as a physicist, a parent, and a lover of science of mind. As a seeker of truth, Scott is a man who needs answers. He began his journey of discovery by studying physics, which culminated in achieving a master's degree in applied physics from Caltech. His background in physics became a catalyst to move into a greater understanding of the meaning of life. Discovering science of mind was the pathway that led him on a quest to understand that Ernest Holmes and other New Thought teachers were advocating. Scott is currently a senior ministerial student at the Holmes Institute. He is using this time of study to speak at a diverse set of communities, such as Harmony Center, so that he can identify what type of community he wants to pursue after graduation. And I should add that Scott is also a really good friend of Reverend John and Becky's. And so welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Mary. Oh, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Scott.
Such a pleasure to be here today. I haven't been at Harmony Center for quite a while. I've been at Namaste, which is in Long Beach, since 2000. And back in the old days, Namaste and Harmony used to do a number of functions together. And so I was here back a long time ago. But it's really good to be here now. You know, when Reverend Sean asked me to speak, I knew I would need to give her a talk title about a week or so in advance. And so the Friday after elections, I was sitting there going, what do I want to talk about? And, you know, what was coming up for me in that moment was that I was really feeling like I was on this roller coaster ride. You know, the things that we go to Magic Mountain to go up and down and left and right. And sometimes it takes us to the right when we think we're going to the left. And then there's always the loop-de-loops, you know? And I kind of felt that that was the way my life was going at that particular moment. And so today's talk title is Gracefully Balancing Your Life. And gratefully is obviously a nod to Thanksgiving. This is a time in our lives to be grateful and to count our blessings. But I'm going to be focusing in today on balance. And how do we balance our lives? And in particular, how do we balance our emotional lives? How do we get to a place where, you know, sometimes we have a lot of roller coaster ride type of things going on, and maybe we feel like we've been on the roller coaster for months. Nobody wants to live on a roller coaster, right? And we want to get back to a balance, a place where we can just be and be graceful in our lives. Now, when we're not balanced, I think what happens is it's the result of having kind of an inner conflict going on. And Dr. Ernest Holmes, he says on that subject, he says, the subjective side of thought, being the seat of memory, often retains thoughts and suppressed emotions which more or less tear or bind. This is what is meant by inner conflict. So what he's saying, the subjective mind, that's our subconscious mind, or unconscious mind, and it's also more, right? It's everybody's unconscious mind, everybody's subjective mind all tied together. And it's also that place where when we think our thoughts, we teach in religious science that as we think those thoughts, that they go into the creative process, into the law, and they show up in our lives. And so when we have these suppressed thoughts, when we have these emotions that are putting us into conflict, the problem is that, you know, there's the conflict that's out there, but if we don't get into balance, then what happens is that our life, we start creating conflict in our lives too. So we want to be in a place where we can release our inner conflicts, come into emotional balance, and have a conflict-free life. So I want to read you a quote. And See if you recognize this one. If you do, let me know after I finish. It goes like this. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming. For the loser now will be later to win, for the times they are a-changing. Anybody recognize that one? Bob Dylan, exactly. The times they are changing. And the thing that struck me, I was listening to that song this week, and the thing that struck me was that it sounded so modern. It sounded like, it should be written and sung for this day right here, right now. And I started thinking about that and going, well, gee, it's not from today. That's a song by Bob Dylan that's from 1963. And I was thinking about that and going, the issue is that when we have these events happen in our lives that take us off balance, one of the things that tends to happen is that we start to think that nothing's going to change again. Right? That whatever is going on in this moment right now, that is what's going to happen for eternity now. But the truth is as we look back on our lives, as we look back to 1963 and the stuff that was going on then, well, it changed. Between 1963, it goes in cycles. Things change. And so rather than being stuck, where when we are stuck, when we feel like we're stuck, what that means is we put that stuckness into the mind that God is again, and we create a life that's stuck. So rather than being stuck, we want to find balance, and I think that one of the ways of finding true emotional balance in our life is to know that this too will pass. And so I'm going to call that the first law of balance. Mary mentioned that I'm a physicist. So I have a tendency to think in those types of terms, to think of things as laws. So it might be the law according to Scott. Nobody's written this down to me, that I know of anyway. So the first law of balance is this too will pass. And the second law of balance then is everything is relative. Now what I mean by that is that humans are relative creatures. And Herman Melville, I think, put it very well. He said, to enjoy bodily warmth, some small part of you must be cold. For there is no quality in this world that is not what it is merely by contrast. So, in our lives, what that's saying is that we have to experience a whole gamut of emotions in our lives in order to appreciate the ones that we want to appreciate, we want to really know. We have a tendency to want to know love a lot in our life, but I think we need to look at the opposites in order to really, truly experience that love. So for instance, in my life, I'm a parent of 3. 2 of my boys, they're all boys, and 2 of my boys are all grown up, so I don't have to worry about raising them anymore. They're doing their own thing now. But my youngest son is 15 years old. And so I'm still in the midst of raising that last one up through his teenage years, which is always, it can be fun, it can be challenging. But one of the things that I'm always thinking about as a parent is how much should I allow him to fail? And the truth is I as a parent, we all parent a little differently, and believe me, I think there's lots and lots and lots of ways to raise children. But for me, I've always believed that I need to allow my kids to fail a little bit. Not so much that they're over here shoved off the edge of the world, right? Not that kind of failure. But little failures. Allow them to fail a little bit, because if they don't ever fail, they don't appreciate the successes that they have in their life. They don't appreciate what they need to do, really, to succeed, because they've always just succeeded.